how long exercise should be and what the benefits are of maybe shorter workouts, especially during menopause. And also, I'm able to and willing to answer any questions throughout the live session. So if you have anything, just pop it into the chat, and I will try to answer. So with that said, I'm going to share a few things that I get asked a lot or I encounter quite a bit is women, because we get told a lot, you should just work out more, eat less. I mean, that's a little tiresome to keep hearing those kinds of comments, and we know better by now, but still the tendency is there to want to work out more to make up for either eating or increased weight loss, or thinking that we're increasing weight loss because, especially during menopause, obviously one of the biggest complaints that I hear is that increase in belly fat. I'm right in the middle of perimenopause, and I've seen some of that, and I'm a fairly active person, and I feel like I'm doing everything right. But some of that is still happening. So one of the things that can be contributing to abdominal fat increases is the balance of that cortisol. There's that word. I threw it out there, and you've heard probably about it a lot. We need to manage cortisol. Cortisol is so bad, and all these things. Now, that said, cortisol in itself obviously is not a bad hormone. It is a necessary hormone. We need it. It affects almost everything in your body. But the magic to it is to keep it balanced, right? So estrogen is one of those hormones that balances out cortisol, and generally it's in check, right? Unless we're too stressed out or stress continues to happen for long periods of time, when that cortisol balance kind of gets thrown off. As we go through menopause, with the lack of estrogen, of the reduction of estrogen, that balance also gets thrown off. So our cortisol levels are already being thrown off. Now, if you add on top of that, if you're stressed out on top of that, so that adds another layer. And menopause itself is stressful on the body, so you're kind of like adding layer to layer to layer onto that stress, which increases cortisol. Some of those factors we can't change, right? The estrogen declining is something that is natural. Obviously, this can be changed with hormone therapy, which is a very personal decision. However, just to manage belly fat, that is obviously not, probably not a good reason to go on hormone therapy just because you have some increased belly fat. That said, there are some ways, natural ways to try to combat cortisol. One of those is exercise. Now, exercise is powerful, but it can also increase cortisol. So the magic here is to keep exercise to a shorter amount of time. So there's research to indicate that at about 40 minutes of exercising, your cortisol levels start to increase. And the longer you keep working out after that, the higher those cortisol levels are, and the more they sustain at that higher level, which is exactly what you don't want. For long distance runners or endurance athletes, like that becomes something to watch out for. There's also quite a few studies that show for long distance or like endurance athletes that those cortisol levels are fairly high compared to other people. How do you manage that then? So that 40-minute mark is kind of like it's a great guideline. Now, with that said, 40 minutes, this guideline does not apply to mindful exercises like yoga or Pilates or those kinds of exercises. Also, walking, so at a lower intensity, is not as detrimental. Now, we've heard a lot about high intensity exercises, so Tabata workouts, high intensity intervals. Those are all always under 40 minutes. Are those great? They are. That said, cortisol levels also tend to increase if you are going really high on the intensity with very little rest. So there's a couple things to watch out for. There's also an increased cortisol response if you work out on an empty stomach in the morning, which cortisol levels are already higher in the morning anyway, and that's natural. It's normal to have cortisol be higher in the morning and then it tapers off in the evening. That's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to go up, go down, but when we're stressed out, it goes up and it stays up and it stays up and it stays up and it never goes down. So those are a couple of things that can increase cortisol. So if you are looking to decrease your cortisol levels or manage them a little bit, not saying, so a couple of things, keep your workouts under 40 minutes. Don't count your warm-ups. So if you're doing like a mobility routine in the front, like that, all of that isn't necessarily counted towards those 40. If you're doing high intensity intervals, if you love high intensity intervals, which I do, not saying you should stop doing them if you're worried about that balance of cortisol, but maybe don't do them as often, or maybe don't go quite as all out, or maybe increase a couple of the rest intervals a little bit more. It's really that rest to work ratio when you work out. And morning workouts, if you do them, maybe not fasted, or, so those are a couple of things that we can do. That said, also, lack of sleep, can increase cortisol. Cortisol can increase your lack of sleep. Maybe not working out also very late in the evening to avoid some loss of, or to create sleep problems that we don't need to create sleep problems during menopause because they already tend to happen anyway. So those are a few things, big pointers here. Don't overdo it when you're working out. Keep your workouts to under 40 minutes or 40 minutes. Definitely under 60 minutes, but 40 minutes is kind of like that sweet spot. If you're doing high intensity workouts, keep them to maybe once or twice a week, and maybe don't go quite as balls to the wall, so all out. Maybe increase the rest intervals. So if you're doing like a 30-second work, 10-second split, maybe increase that rest interval to 30-20 or 30-30. Those are small things that you can do to maybe manage some of that cortisol increase. So for those of you that love to get on the treadmill for an hour a day, or doing like long runs, but at the same time you are worried about cortisol and maybe belly fat, which I mentioned seems to be one of the biggest complaints and concerns that women raise during the menopausal transition. Those are some of the tips regarding exercise that can really help. Obviously, getting enough sleep, getting enough nutrition, those are great ways as well to get your body to be less stressed out. Nemesis during menopause is stress. When you think about it, your body's already a little bit at war with itself, trying to figure out how to run a system that was running with a certain amount of fuel, in this case estrogen, and then suddenly we take it away and we have to learn how to function without it. So there's a lot of things going on, rebalancing. There's a lot of learning. Your body has to learn how to function without estrogen, and it's already enough stress. So trying to minimize the stress in your life, which we hear it every day. How do we do that, right? How do you manage stress? It's really finding ways. It doesn't have to be something super big. I get it. I have a small child, and I have several jobs because I love them all. And I always have too many projects, and I feel stressed most of the time. And although it feels like it's good stress, I really have to make a conscious effort to take time off or to do things that I feel are good for my mental health, which are taking a walk with the dogs, or sitting in the corner reading a book, or watching a movie, something that helps me disconnect a little bit. And when I say disconnect, also prioritizing staying off screens and not checking social media or the news all the time. So those are the things that I've started implementing in my own life, to just kind of stepping away. It's important to be able to step away when life doesn't step away on its own, right? So those are kind of like the big things that I wanted to highlight. I hear some Claudia. Any tips to sleep? That is a really good question that a lot of people have. Now, if you are, when it comes to exercise specific, maybe if you are working out at night, I'm not sure if you are, maybe that could be changed to do your workouts a little earlier in the day. Or some people find it helpful to actually walk before they, and this is a very light walk before they go to sleep, to spend some time outside. Insomnia during menopause and sleep loss, that is a huge problem, and it's hard to manage. There's a lot of follow-up questions I would have for you. So maybe we can also, if you shoot me a message, we can talk a little bit more about that offline to kind of evaluate your own personal situation. But in general with sleep, we want to have a sleep routine. Like before you go to bed, there's a couple things that are kind of a generic recommendations. Screen time, I'm sure you've heard about it. Try to disconnect from your screens about an hour before you go to bed. Like no screen time. So if you're the type that sits in bed and scrolls through their Instagram feed or any other to check what's up or to unwind, because I think there's a correlation, like we tend to be like, oh, now I have time to sit in bed and kind of check up on what's happened during the day. That is probably the worst thing you can do. Also, associating that some of the tips that I've gotten from sleep experts and therapists is to create an environment within your bedroom that is related to just sleep or sex. So generally it's like sex and sleep. That's what we do in the bedroom. There shouldn't be any TV watching in the bedroom. There shouldn't be any, reading books can help. But I've also heard from a therapist, it might be better to just, read a book on the couch, and then when you're ready to go to sleep, go to your bedroom. So you don't create that association that there's other things that are done in bed other than sleeping. It does seem silly, but it really does. It's like you create this habit in your body that tends to be, okay, it's time to go to sleep. I'm going to the bedroom. So there's those kinds of things. So if you're doing some of that, again, the working out, a lot of people that work out in the evening tend to have more issues sleeping. I personally don't really work out after 2 p.m. because it does wind me up. And it's similarly to coffee. I don't drink coffee after 2, and I don't work out rarely after 2 o'clock. And that's a very personal decision, right? I figured out for myself that works best for me because I also go to bed fairly early. One thing that I stopped doing that I used to do is, read a book in bed, or like have my, or make lists about my projects, because it was this like, okay, now I have my quiet time. My daughter is in bed, and if you're a parent, you can probably really relate. It's like your quiet time in the evening. It's the one time that you get to be to yourself. And I started, writing down things in bed. And after working with a sleep specialist, he recommended to do that before I go to bed. So like I was mentioning, couch, sit down. Maybe if you're someone that has a lot of things on your mind, I do that all the time. I lay down and then my mind's like, okay, now it's time to catch up on the day and the project and all the things that you didn't have time to think about during the day. And his recommendation was, well, why don't you sit on the couch or on a chair or wherever, but not in your bedroom, and write down some of these like tasks or things that you like an hour in your head. So that way your mind gets a rest and says, okay, I already wrote it down. It's checked off. I'm going to check on it tomorrow. So it's almost like a summary for the day with some things to do for tomorrow. And so you feel like you have some grasp on your tasks, if that is the person that you are. For me, it is definitely a big one. I mean, I've had the hardest time going to bed and closing my eyes and it not going straight into and now we're going to think about everything that's going on in life. So try those couple of things. For sleep, one other thing that there's some research to indicate, tart cherry juice is a natural melatonin enhancer. So I started doing that. I do feel like it helps me a little bit. It's really just a little, like 2 or 3 ounces, like a little shot that I take of tart cherry juice before I go to bed, or about 30 minutes before I go to bed. That can help. And I started incorporating more foods into my life, like lion's mane mushrooms and such things that are considered, adaptogens which help with our stress response and again help with the cortisol. And I've written a bunch of blogs on some of these topics, like the insomnia and some of the foods that can help. And I just want to throw it out there. I'm not a nutritionist or dietitian, but I do like to research, and I do have a degree in health sciences, so I have a little bit of knowledge there. But I like to do a lot of research on things and foods and that can possibly help, that can be nutritious and beneficial to the brain and the body, not from a weight loss perspective, but more from a nutritional perspective and perspective of brain health, which is another passion of mine. So if you want to check those out, I'm constantly writing new blogs on the website, fitnessandmenopause.com. And I also have a newsletter you can sign up for. So when something new comes out, you're always in the know. Go ahead and sign up for that if you want to stay in the know. I love to research things that are relevant to you. So if you have any questions, such as, this was a good one, the sleep one, because a lot of people do have sleep problems during menopause, and trying to figure out ways to manage it is important. Send me a message and I'd be happy to research it, because I bet you that there is a whole lot of other women out there that have the exact same question, and sifting through the information online these days is incredibly hard, especially with the amount of misinformation and predator journals, which are journals that seem to be credible, but are really just paid advertisement. But that is really hard to decipher from. So let me do the work for you. So send me a message if you're interested in a specific topic, and I'll try to do my best to research it. I teach a class in scholarly research, so I know what I'm doing and I know where to look, and I have access to some things that you wouldn't have, or that people generally don't have. So I have access to a lot of journal articles through my faculty job, because I also am a health science professor. So I'd love to do the work for you, the research work. So send me a message if you're interested in a specific topic, or you want to know more about something else, or you've read about something and you're not sure about it. I had a client of mine yesterday ask me about something, and I didn't know. I've never heard about it, but I was immediately interested because I'm a very, very curious person. And I found out, I did a little research, and I was able to get back to her with some information. I learned something in the process, which is always incredibly exciting for me. And so please do. I'm not just saying that. Please do send me a message or reach out to me via any of the social media outlets, or you can send me an email at maria@fitnessandmenopause.com, and I'll try to do my best to give you some answers for it, and maybe able to write an article that and a new blog that a lot of women will benefit from. So go ahead and send me your questions, whatever you got. And with that said, so just want to kind of recap on the main topic of today, which was what I wanted to cover. If you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'd love to provide an answer if I have one. If not, I'll get back to you with an answer. But exercise, duration and intensity. What is the recommendation during menopause? There is, if you're looking to manage your cortisol levels, which are hard to manage anyway, but during menopause become a little harder to manage, which is related to your, can be related to your maybe abdominal fat increase. You want to keep your workouts to about 40 minutes. If you're doing super high intensity workouts, maybe don't do them as often. So if you're used to doing them several times a day, it's not day, goodness. If you're doing them several times a day, you need to see someone. But if you're doing several really high intensity workouts a week, maybe cut down on those, maybe once or twice a week only, and maybe go down on intensity or increase your rest intervals. So try to give yourself more rest in between those high intensity intervals. If you're working out on an empty stomach in the morning, maybe, and again, these are all suggestions. I'm not telling you to just stop doing what you love doing, but these are suggestions if you're looking for suggestions on how to manage your stress levels and your cortisol. Working out too much might seem like a good idea to manage stress, but it probably is not. Like the physiological response to it would be an increase in cortisol. That said, if you need that for your mental health, if you need that 1 hour run or an hour and a half run to just kind of decompress, then there's a fine balance there, right? It's like if you need that, again, not telling you that you should stop doing that. I'm just giving you suggestions on maximizing that kind of balance there. So under 40 minutes or about 40-minute workouts, moderate intensity. If you're going high intensity, get more rest in between your intervals. Don't do it every day. Maybe limit it to 2 to 3 times a day, a day, 2 to 3 times a week maximum. Maybe don't work out fasting in the morning. Eat something a little before you go, or do your workouts a little later. That said, workouts in the morning are great. For most of us, it's the only way we can get a workout in, so do it. And maybe avoid working out really late at night. That is for both your sleep, and because it can't increase your lack of sleep, or it doesn't give your body enough time to get into that sleep mode. And those are kind of like the big things from a workout perspective. Again, 40 minutes is that magic spot, and don't push it too hard. Don't overdo it. Try to find a few things that you can do to unwind and unplug. Doesn't have to be every day. If you can do 5 minutes of something that is good for you, some mindfulness, meditation, or anything that lets you unplug, do it. Try to incorporate it every day, a little bit of that. That can help with the stress, because a lot of things are out of our control, and but we can control a couple of minutes a day. And that's what I got for you today. So if you didn't make it, if you're watching this as a recording, and you still have questions about it, send me a message. You can DM me on Instagram at Dr. Maria Luque, or Facebook at Fitness in Menopause. You can email me at mariaandfitnessinmenopause.com. You can check out my website at fitnessinmenopause.com and sign up for the newsletter if you want to stay in the know. There's also a free guide on there, like for menopause-specific workouts, with a little bit more information on different types of workouts for different menopause symptoms. So there's some guidelines on why one exercise or one modality might be better than the other. So if you want that, you can also get that on my website. And again, fitnessinmenopause.com. Thank you so much if you checked in today. I'm going to check the chat real quick if anybody else has another question. And with that, I'm going to leave you to your Friday and your weekend. And again, if you have questions, even if you're watching this as a recording later, send me a message. I'd be happy to find the answers for you. And I'm probably going to learn something in the process, which is something that I truly, truly enjoy. Okay, bye. I'll see you soon.